What's up, guys? Brett Okamoto from ESPN alongside UFC middleweight champion Dricus Du Plessis, who, I was in Abu Dhabi last week for UFC 308. And before the fight even happened, I said, whatever takes place in this fight, I got to talk to Dricus to see what his thoughts are. And the fight was pretty interesting in my mind, and I think the entire MMA world. So excited to talk to you, man. First of all, are we seeing you at home? Is this your house there in South Africa?
Indeed. Yeah.
All right.
Home.
Well, we appreciate you joining us. Is that where you watched it? You just watched the fight from home?
Yes, actually, I was at a friend's home. We were a bunch of friends together watching the fight. But yeah, like you said, it was a absolutely interesting fight. When I called the fight, I obviously backed Whittaker in the whole build up to it because it's Robert Whittaker. He's an amazing dude. He's an awesome guy to look up to. But then, of course, after facing Whittaker, I always believed that Khamzat would have the strength advantage in that fight. Whittaker being super technical, but as far as brute strength goes, he's just not that much of a force. Where you can see with Khamzat fights, he has that strength force, and maybe that's why he also gets tired in a lot of his fights, or when it goes past the second round. But yeah, what an amazing night of fight! Obviously with Ilya doing his thing, and he did an amazing job. I think the man's a superstar.
So going into that fight between Khamzat and Whittaker, was that sort of your biggest question? Was the strength discrepancy, or was there what other questions did you have going in?
Yeah, that was 100%. It was how I saw the fight play. Is Whittaker had to survive the first 2 rounds and then do what he can do. For me, and surviving the 2 rounds didn't mean just defend, but stay out of harm's way, which obviously didn't happen. Khamzat did an incredible job of tying him down and using that strength to his advantage, using his strength advantage in that fight. When you have a guy like that and you're just defending, it becomes a guy who's that good offensively and you are just defending. It becomes hard. If you look at a guy like Whittaker, he's also an offensive fighter. Likes to push forward, blitz, and it felt like Khamzat being a forward fighter. I think, in my opinion, which is easy to say from the couch, but maybe push a little bit forward more. But I just knew that Khamzat is a great first round fighter, an okay, good enough second round fighter, but that's when he starts to fade. And it was going to be interesting to see what happens in round 3, 4, and 5. But he got the job done. So big ups to him.
Yeah, man, that's super interesting because I asked Khamzat in the back after the fight. I said, "Did Rob even make a mistake, or was this just inevitable? Like this is what was going to happen, And of course, Khamzat would of course be like, "Yeah, he didn't make a mistake. I just think that's what was going to happen." But you talk about moving forward, and I do think that's almost necessary against a guy like Khamzat. That's like a mental thing, though, right? I mean, that's just like when you get in there. I mean, could you talk about just what the challenge would look like knowing that the guy's probably going to go in on your legs? Like, how do you mentally and technically prepare for something like that?
Yeah, no, on a technical level, you have to prepare for that like we prepare on a daily basis. Get good enough to match somebody on a technical level. But with a guy like Khamzat, he's a bully fighter, like a lot of guys are. He's a guy that. We saw that with Strickland before he fought me. He's a guy that goes forward and gets his momentum, and there was just no way I could allow that. And then with a guy like Khamzat, constantly being afraid of that takedown, I think gets a lot of people backing up. And with Khamzat, what I see is the way he shoots in. He's not necessarily getting on the legs and getting a perfect double, not at all. He gets in and he wants to grab a hold of you. And if you are defending or have a defensive mindset on that, he just grabs a hold of you, and that's where he starts to tie you down. So I think that was something, maybe a mistake that Whittaker made. But like I said, on a mental level, you don't know how hard this guy is. You don't know how strong he is. So it's a feeling out process. And the way Khamzat likes to treat this feeling out process is by getting the fight to the ground as soon as possible and trying to drain you and see if you make a mistake as soon as possible.
This idea that you got to survive the first 2 rounds against Khamzat, would that apply to you? And I know that I'm kind of, your ego probably gets into it a little bit, but is there an idea of like, I got to survive, and then things will be a lot better? He'll start to decline a little bit in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Yeah, I'll be very careful in that sense. I think a lot of guys make that same mistake with me. I think Sean Strickland made that mistake with me, maybe even Israel. saying, listen, get past round 1 and 2 with this guy, and he's going to be tired, and that's where you start gaining. But if you have a defensive mindset, you're going to be on the back foot the whole time, especially with a offensive heavy fighter like comes out in the offensive wrestling stage, and myself in offensive everything stage. So I think that I'll be very careful to say that would be the way to approach a fight like that. I think, in a fight like that, when somebody's coming to fight you the way Khamzat does, you go out and you fight him. If he comes to wrestle you, wrestle him back. If you just defend, there's not a scenario where he's threatened at all. And that's what we saw with Rob. Rob being technically very, very good. But there wasn't a stage where he even threatened with a submission, whether it be a submission with a strike or just forward pressure. He didn't threaten Khamzat in any way. And that's why I think Khamzat had his way the way he did.
Khamzat, one thing about his career is it's kind of like, especially before he started to fight upper level guys, it was all based on like these gym stories of like how he had wrestled with these guys and, these top level guys. Alexander Gustafsson, who was a big, guy who moved up to heavyweight. Have you ever trained with anybody or had conversations with somebody that could compare the physical strength of you two? Do you feel like you have any comparison from guys who have firsthand knowledge?
No, I've never trained with people. I've fought with people that train with him. So I think that will probably be, but that's also hard to go on because nobody wants to really give anything away. But I don't think myself and Khamzat has really, maybe he has, he's trained with Till, which I fought. He's trained with Strickland, which I fought. And I guess that's going to be the only benchmarks for me. But, when it comes to strength, there's not even a doubt in my mind that, Khamzat is a strong guy, but I don't think, I know for a fact that he's never felt power like this. Now, when it comes to his wrestling, obviously that's his strong suit and where he likes to take a fight. And I would welcome that if I had to fight him. Let's meet strengths and see who can last. I think the fact that he always fights with his strength, he uses that strength. That's why he gets tired. But you can say the same about me. And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to who's willing to give up and who's willing to die. And then, that questions I've answered that question many, many times.
Last thing I want to ask you about the fight itself is initially, it was like, oh, he broke his jaw. Like the jaw was broken. And then it came out, Robert said that he had this teeth issue already. But initially, when you saw that, what did you think of that? Because, obviously you roll and you've been in there with guys with strength and everything. When you first thought, did you actually think that the jaw was broken, or what did you make of the finish there?
I definitely, I thought the teeth would break back, but where the choke was on, it wasn't on the jaw. So I never thought that the jaw was broken. It was interesting to go and say, because obviously that was the initial statement. So it was interesting to me because the way he had, when you have a jaw in the bottom, way at the bottom, and that face crank, that's where you break a jaw. But it was higher, it was over the mouth. So I didn't think that would be the case. And then, of course, Rob came out saying that his teeth, the first time the teeth were broken backwards was when he fought me. And funny enough, some of my teammates and friends that watched the fight with me, they said, there's no way. Everybody thought that it was an injury that happened, maybe, taking a lot of fights and doing all those camps. Immediately, as a fighter and the fighters that were around me, we said, no ways, that doesn't happen that quickly. So we were thinking that it was a previously sustained injury for sure. And then, of course, Rob came and said that he has a weakness with his teeth, always have. And then, of course, when he fought me, his teeth broke back and never properly healed because the man was in camp after that all the time. So, I feel really sorry for Rob. He looked, fight week, my confidence in Rob grew tremendously, just in terms of how he carried himself, with how Khamzat carried himself, going almost a complete, he changed his personality completely. So, I was growing in confidence for Rob. So I actually feel bad for him because Rob was defending very well. He was staying calm. And if you look at that fight again, if you look at the choke at the end, it wasn't like Khamzat had his hooks in, both hooks in. The crank was on, but something and even Rob said it, where if he could turn just a little bit, he would have probably gotten out of it because it wasn't straight on.
Yeah.
But, with the previously sustained injury, I feel bad for the man because he didn't get to showcase maybe what and how he prepared for it. But like I said, this is a fight game. It's unforgiving sport. It's an unforgiving game. And on the night, Khamzat did what he had to do, and he got that win.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I hadn't even thought about that. And obviously taking nothing away from Khamzat. But without that injury, maybe Rob is able to defend, get to a second round, and then maybe the conversations are totally different. I don't know. But as you may say, it's the fight game. And so you always have something going on. It's you go in there as you are. So full credit to Khamzat. Obviously, we've been talking about Khamzat this entire time. We've been thinking and operating as if your next opponent is Sean Strickland. Can you bring us up to speed? What are the conversations like? What are you expecting to happen here?
Well, let me tell you this. So obviously the conversations were more on fighting Strickland, but there was a very big reason no contract's been signed. And I'm saying this as an opinion. I agreed. I said, I'll fight Strickland. Perfect. And that's the fight the fans want. But if you go on what the fans want right now, it's definitely not the Strickland fight. And if you ask me, what do I want? I want to fight the best guy. I want to fight the guy the fans want me to fight. And that 100% is Khamzat. If they give me the Strickland fight, great. I'll fight Strickland in February or March or whenever, and then fight Khamzat. But, with the hype right now and what the fans are feeling, and at the end of the day, they are the people that need to be entertained. And if you go on value for the UFC, and if you ask me personally, the Khamzat fight's what I want. I want to take his I want to beat the next best guy, and I've beaten Sean Strickland. Everybody can have their opinion on how close the fight was. Yeah, it was close. But there's not a doubt in my mind if I won that fight or lost that fight. And the win is on my record. I've been in there with him. And what excites me right now is getting in there and beating Khamzat Chimaev. That would be first prize. That's what I want. And wherever he wants to do it. I know he has some traveling issues. I don't know the extent of those issues, but I'll fly wherever I need to get that fight. I'll fight him in his hometown. I don't know where he resides currently, but I'll go there and we can fight there. That's the fight the fans want to see, and for my legacy, that's the fight I want.
Is that just because you're willing to travel anywhere for the fight, or do you kind of like the idea of stacking the deck against you, or is it just simply to make the fight happen?
Yeah, it's simply to make that fight happen. Stacking the deck, I've gotten very used to that, so it will feel more comfortable, I guess. But I'm used to, before my UFC career, I'm very used to being the favorite as well. So for me, it's only about one thing, and it is who is the next best guy, the baddest guy out there. That's the guy I want to fight. So right now, people are, thinking that Khamzat is the next best guy, but there's only one best guy, and that's me. So I want to prove that once again. And obviously, if you look at the amount of people that's going to watch a fight, there's more people that are going to want to watch me versus Khamzat and me versus Strickland. And at the end of the day, that's the only determining factor, is the guy that the people want to see. Because at the end of the day, they buy the tickets, they buy the pay-per-views, and they are the people we need to entertain.
Setting that aside, just from a competitive standpoint, all you guys at the top of this division, and I think, you were very justified in saying this. Whenever Khamzat would come up, you'd be like, he hasn't proven it, When you say, I want to beat the next best guy, in your mind right now, is that Khamzat? Or if taking all bias or what fans think aside, Sean Strickland has been doing it longer. Do you see him as the number 2 middleweight in the world, or do you see Khamzat as the number 2 middleweight in the world?
Well, I'm gonna answer that this way. Sean Strickland beat Paulo Costa in a very boring fight. Robert Whittaker went out there with an amazing performance against Paulo Costa, got rocked, came back, made it look easy, took a fight against Khamzat, then got a change in opponent fight week, made it look easy. So that automatically puts him above Strickland in my mind. And a rematch against Strickland also didn't really get me that excited. I knew how to beat him and I would do it again. So Khamzat comes out there, puts on. So if Khamzat beat Whittaker by decision, that wouldn't warrant him leapfrogging Sean Strickland. But doing what he did, the way he did it, it's hard to deny the man that he deserves the shot. And for me personally, once again, he is right now, because before that, like you said, he hasn't beaten the top of the division, but now he has. Sean Strickland hasn't beaten Robert Whittaker. Khamzat has. So if Khamzat beat Whittaker by decision, that wouldn't warrant him leapfrogging Sean Strickland. But doing what he did, the way he did it, it's hard to deny the man that he deserves the shot. And for me personally, once again, he is right now, because before that, like you said, he hasn't beaten the top of the division, but now he has. Sean Strickland hasn't beaten Robert Whittaker. Khamzat has. And Whittaker has been at the top of that division for very, very long. He's only been beaten by myself and Israel Adesanya. So yeah, that warrants me, in my mind, warrants me a shot at the belt.
This question, I guess, doesn't really matter in a lot of ways, but I am curious. As a fighter, you know that it's tough to get like guarantees. It's tough to get yourself into a position where you know exactly what your next fight is going to be. Dana White did come out and say that Sean Strickland was getting the next title fight. Would there be the fighter in you that would feel like this ain't right? Like it was already kind of given, or is that just not how the fight game works?
No, that's not how the fight game works. The fight is given when the contract's signed, and the contract's not signed. So this is the fight game. We've seen this many times before.
Mm-hmm. Last thing for you is I personally, and I know a lot of people join me on this, I would love to be in South Africa and watch you fight at some point. And when I was in Abu Dhabi, I was walking through, like the executive row, like there's like the media side of the octagon, and then there's the side that Dana and everybody else sits on. And the South African delegation was there. And what's the update? When are we expecting this to happen? And on top of that, who would be the best opponent? Like who would be that opponent to be like, Dricus Du Plessis is fighting in South Africa against who? Like, what would be the perfect scenario?
So let me tell you this, the delegation was there, and for a very good reason. We are doing everything we can. They are doing everything they can. The UFC wants this to happen. Dana said my next fight is in South Africa. Obviously, there's challenges, but the challenges comes in one form. We need to put a roof on an arena. We need to put a roof on a stadium. The arenas aren't big enough, but the stadiums, we have world-class stadiums. We've hosted Rugby World Cup, Soccer World Cup, and we are busy doing all the things that are necessary to get that event here. Problem with that, it's probably going to take a while. These things don't happen overnight, and the talks aren't just talks; it's serious talks. The government and the UFC have been working very closely together to make this happen. I know that for a fact, and it's probably going to be late 2025 if everybody does what needs to be done. And right now, everybody is pulling their part. So for me to sit around and wait for that, I'm at my age, young, I'm healthy. I'm ready to do it. So if I fight Khamzat next, I beat Khamzat Chimaev. And this is just me spitballing. I beat Robert Whittaker, then I beat Sean Strickland, then I beat Israel Adesanya, then I beat Khamzat Chimaev. Mm-hmm. That warrants a double title fight. Mm-hmm. And I think that might just be it. So, I mean, for me, I have this vision. And I can't picture anything more perfect than that. But to be completely honest, I do not care who it is. South Africa would go crazy no matter who I fight. So, if I fight Khamzat now, then Strickland in South Africa, or fight Strickland now, fight Khamzat, it's a national fight week, then come to South Africa. All that it's kind of a blur. But, at the end of the day, there's a goal that needs to be reached, and that is fighting in my home country and getting that second belt. And to do those on the same night, that would be pretty sweet.
Oh, man, that would be such a great event to watch at the end of next year. I would love to see that. And now that you brought it up, I will ask you one more. How much of a threat do you think Magomed Ankalaev is to Alex Pereira?
After this last performance, not a big one. Yeah, I don't think so. If you look at the way Rakic fought versus Yuri Prochazka, what Alex did to Prochazka, yeah, I mean, Ankalaev is a great fighter. He's an all-rounder. Obviously, has great wrestling, but I think maybe some fights that happen. Sometimes you just don't have and the styles make fights. Sometimes you just don't have the night that you wish you had, and yeah, it wasn't a great fight to watch. But Ankalaev has with Rakic, he has good defense and he has good ground game and he has all that. We don't know what happens when Ankalaev takes Pereira down, but just based on, and Alex Pereira is an absolute machine. The man is, right now, hard to deny him as one of the greatest fighters in the UFC for sure. So, I can't go against him at this stage unless he fights me.
Well, pleasure talking to you, man. Thank you so much for your thoughts on the Khamzat fight.
I appreciate you, Brett. Thank you so much.
What happens next for you in South Africa in 2025, bud.
It's going to be amazing.